Hello there, parents. A few parents had asked me that they would appreciate if I gave uh, one or two ideas of what we can be relaying to our children, what we can tell them about the Pesach Seder, about the story, as well as to clue you in as to what we have done in class. So, one thing that I really want to feel very important, that's very important, is for us to relate to our children the understanding that what we are doing the night of the Seder, we're about to begin Seder, I believe 3,329. We haven't stopped since that first Seder back in Mitzrayim the night before we left. We know it's MS. The non-Jews, namely the Muslims, Christians, they accept the Jews leaving Egypt as fact. Moshe talks to the Bnei Israel about leaving Mitzrayim. You can't tell a nation something that happened to them. Moses can't tell the Jews something that happened to them if it never ever happened to them. The fact that not only one person witnessed leaving Egypt, the fact that not only 10, 20, or 100, but millions, 600,000 men and women, children, men, that means with the women and children, you're talking about 2 to 3 million. That makes it fact. That makes it history. That makes it our national heritage, our pride. And that is what we are recognizing, remembering, and building off of from tonight, the night of the Seder, and going forward. But what are we celebrating? What was the big deal? Now we're free. We probably would have gone free at some point in the 1860s, right? We had the Civil War. So slaves go and come. What are we celebrating? Now, to understand that is the most crucial point that I want you to impart on your children. And that's our freedom is a freedom to serve Hashem the way that we want to, the way that He wants us to serve Him. Freedom does not mean I could do whatever I want. That's not freedom. Freedom is that I have the freedom to make the choices that I want to serve Hashem the way He wants me to. Just think about the whole story and what we're doing because of it. I'm going to eat this little cracker. Does it make any sense? No. I'm going to get rid of all my pretzels and bread in my house. Makes no sense. In essence, it really makes no sense. The only reason why we're doing it is because Hashem told us to. And to celebrate that freedom because Hashem loves us and He took us out in such a miraculous way only for this purpose, to give us the mitzvot and for us to serve Him. That is what we're commemorating on the night of the Seder. That's a basic message that I would like you to know yourself and to relate to your children, because I think it's integral to have a successful Seder. A few thoughts, and then I'll show you what we have been working on in class so you have a little bit of an idea before the night of the Seder. Number one, make it exciting. Make it, as we say, geschmack. Make it fantastic. You want your child every year to be thinking of, I cannot wait for the night of the Seder. So sometimes that means slowing down. Sometimes that means speeding up at certain points. I think that would be any way that you can think of to make it more engaging and exciting for them can make a difference. That makes for a difference for their relating to the story, understanding the story, and feeling part of that story of us leaving Mitzrayim, leaving Egypt. Another idea. The Seder story is for everyone. The reason why we have the four sons is not to say that the wicked son is not to be told the story. No, just the opposite. Each and every child, the Torah wants us to reach every single child on their level. And that's why the Torah gives us guidelines of how to reach those children. And that's why we need to think and try our best to teach and explain to each and every child the way that they can understand. So one thing I want to do is just go through for you yourself, if you the basic format of the Haggadah. I don't know if you can see well here. Oh, I think this may look like it's backwards on the screen. You tell me when you see it. So the basic format of the Haggadah I'll go through is we start in the beginning of, we'll call it the guts of the Seder, is Magid. One of the students asked me, why does it sound like we're saying Magid, the story, we left Mitzrayim, 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 over and over again. It can be explained very, very simply in a few words. The beginning of Magid is Manishtana, Avodim Ayinu. That's what I call the warm-up, the introduction to the Seder. Children recognizing that tonight is different. A basic answer, we're different because slaves and free, and we're constantly addressing both those issues. We then discuss part of our warm-up of who is this mitzvah for? Great sages do this mitzvah every single year, year in and out. Young children, the four sons. Again, we want them to be part of the mitzvah. And then the Haggadah discusses, when do we do this mitzvah? Do we do it from the beginning of the month? Do we do it on the night of Pesach? And then the Haggadah gets into what I call the four Pesukim, the four verses in the Torah that we say when bringing Karban. And those four verses are Arami Oved Avi, Vayareo Otanu HaMitzrayim, Vanitzak Al Hashem, and Vayotzienu Hashem. In each one of those verses, the Haggadah, which seems to be draying on and on if you're not familiar, it quotes the verse and then it breaks it down one or two words at a time to explain in depth what those words are referring to and what they mean. So you have one, and that's referring to going down to Egypt. The second verse is referring to our slavery, becoming slaves in Egypt. And the third verse is referring to our crying out to Hashem and Hashem hearing our cries. And then the fourth verse is what Hashem did about it. Hashem took us out with great, wondrous miracles. And then the Haggadah, now that we discussed those verses, those psukim, the Haggadah goes on to tell us what the makot were. And that's why we have the dam, tzvardei akinim. Then the Haggadah then discusses to bring out how wondrous these miracles were. How many miracles were they really? And then the Haggadah goes through what we need to be thankful for to Hashem. That's the Dayenu. And then lastly, we have Rabbi Gamliel telling us the three main things, Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. Those are the three main points. And I wrote a little something which I'm going to discuss with you in a minute. But those are the three main points that everyone must say in order to fulfill the mitzvah of the Seder night. And then you finally have every Jew must feel that he himself personally left Mitzrayim. And then you have the praise and thanking Hashem and the bracha before you eat the matzah. And then that's pretty much Magid in a condensed version. But if you have that framework, first we're introducing it, then we are going through a few psukim, a few verses to explain how the story happened and what the story is about in depth, thanking Hashem and explaining the makot, and then we have the cut. Your child will come home with something like this. This is a measuring chart. Again, one of the points that we want to give is that we do the mitzvot because Hashem wants us to do them. And therefore, we're careful to do them in the way that the Torah wants us to do them. So there are amounts, the proper amounts to eating, a certain amount of matzah, a certain amount of maror that we should be eating. And we discussed this in class. They should be familiar with this. If you want, it's a handy-dandy little chart. Take it or leave it. The students themselves will be coming home with something called the Haggadah Shali. This is only in Hebrew. The tricky part of it is that it's only in Hebrew. So I would strongly suggest using side by side a child-friendly Haggadah or at least a basic Haggadah in English. If you would like, I do have a few extra child-friendly Haggadot at home. You could let me know. Maybe I can lend you one. The students worked hard, and every single one, I believe, made Divrei Torah, something that they researched on the Haggadah that we printed up and we shared out. What that means is that your child is coming home with many Divrei Torah. I'm going to discuss with them in class a game plan because I don't know if everyone's interested in 20 Divrei Torah from one child at the Seder. But I think that's something that maybe you should also discuss. Let's go through, let's pick 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever that number is that you feel comfortable with for your child to share at the table, and they'll feel that they are being included in the Seder that way. Lastly, and I think this is very important, I wanted to flip it, and that's part of the reason for this video, where it goes, often I have parents saying, well, the mitzvah is supposed to be from the parent to the child, not from the child telling the parent all about the story of Mitzrayim. We spent some time in class brainstorming questions that we did not get the answer to in class. I compiled those questions, and the students, if they were in class at the time, wrote in red in their Haggadot the question, so they know when they get up to that point that they can ask that question. And then I have prepared for the parents, again, if you like my answers, use my answers. If you don't like my answers, use your own answers. That's fine. A little question answer booklet for you to use. So if your child asks you a question, you will feel empowered to answer the question on your own. Lastly, the last thing I'm going to leave off, if anybody would like a little more guidance, something more to talk about, give me a call, 347-668-7895. Again, 347-668-7895. And you have my email. Have a Chag Kosher B'Sameach, a great Pesach.